Happy St. Patrick's Day to one and all. I'm channeling it a little early. Welcome to the UDC David A. Clarke School of Law, which this week was ranked by U.S. News and World Report 7th in the nation for top outstanding legal clinics, up from 10th last year. And I was just telling Tula that we were also ranked first for most welcoming to older law students, so keep in touch. I am delighted to see so many friends in the audience and people who care about the future of the District of Columbia. So it is my great pleasure to both welcome you to your public law school and your public university, which does this kind of thing all the time, and to introduce Mark Fisher and Muriel E. Take it away, guys, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Shelley, and welcome everyone. We start off with good news and bad news. The good news is we'll get you out here an hour earlier than we had expected before the snow starts to stick. The bad news is that our second candidate of the evening, Mayor Vincent Gray, has declined the invitation to take part in this UnForum series, which makes him the only candidate to do so. But we turn to Muriel E, who is the Ward 4 council member. She has been in that position since 2007. She chairs the Committee on Economic Development and represents the District of Columbia on the Metro Board. She is a graduate of Chatham College in Pittsburgh, has a master's in public policy from American University, and she worked for the Montgomery County government and served as an ANC commissioner in her home neighborhood of Riggs Park before joining the council. So we have an hour, and we're going to range around a number of issues and learn a little bit more about you. And I wonder if you'd start off by telling us about the first time you thought about getting into politics. What drew you in? What doubts did you have about going down that road?
Well, that's a big question, and I'm happy to be here to answer it, and happy to see so many of you here, and I want to thank you for your attention to what I think is a hugely important race in the District of Columbia. And I think my journey in politics was kind of a natural one. This is my hometown. I grew up here. My family has been here for 5 generations. And my father was in the original class of ANC commissioners. So I really grew up with grassroots politics. And I often joke that, you know, it was kind of a night out for our family to go hand out flyers and newsletters and go to ANC meetings. And one of my claims to fame is that I've spent many an election day in one of the largest voting precincts in the District of Columbia. Anybody? Precinct 66. It's Bacchus Junior High School now, UDC, and it's my home precinct. So I think, you know, the evolution for me in politics has kind of been a natural one. So I went out to college in Pittsburgh, small liberal arts women's college. I spent a couple of years in the private sector in insurance, and I learned quickly that really wasn't for me. And I came back to study public policy at American University, and that's when I really learned that local government was what I loved and where I would make a mark. I bought a home in Riggs Park, what I call a good neighborhood waiting to be great. And the key to neighborhoods like that is just hard work from a lot of people to make sure that government services are being delivered. So that's where I really got into it. I too ran for ANC commissioner, got involved in my local ward politics, and that's really where it started.
So your father was an ANC commissioner, as you mentioned. He also worked on Marion Barry's campaigns. He was a ward coordinator for Mayor Barry.
Well, that's what the story Mayor Barry likes to tell, I have to tell you.
Is that not the case?
Yes, it's a story Mr. Barry likes to tell. Certainly my father wasn't really supportive of Mr. Barry, but I wouldn't say that he was intricately involved in his campaigns.
Okay. Well, nonetheless, you grew up in a city that Marion Barry ran for many years.
Yes.
What's your understanding of his appeal? What did he do right to win such a loyal following for such a long time, and what did he do wrong?
To this day, maybe some in this room would be surprised, but many of you won't. I can go places in D.C. where people will tell me, if Marion Barry was on the ballot, I'd vote for him. Are you gonna be like Marion Barry? I said, well, no, I'm gonna be like Muriel Bowser. But I think that especially early in his mayoralty, now I was very small then, so I can't tell you a lot about Marion Barry's first term from firsthand experience. But I think what he inspired in people was somebody who would fight for them. And I think his longest lasting legacy will be the summer jobs program, where many adults right now got their first job with Marion Barry's summer job program. And they knew that he was personally involved in it, and they got an enriching experience. So I think that's part of it. Other people will tell you that Marion Barry helped their businesses along. I think there are a lot of people who made millions of dollars because Marion Barry believed that this government should support local businesses. So I think there's a lot of love for him for those things. So those are some of the things that he got right. I think some of the things that he got wrong was that he kind of used the government as a spoil system. And so in some places it got bloated and inefficient and got carried away. And we know, of course, about his own personal foibles that he put before the city. And so I think that he will have a legacy that is good in many ways for the city.
So moving from one long time mayor to the current mayor, obviously this race has changed significantly in the last week. And as you look at what Mayor Gray, how he's handled this scandal from the very beginning of his time in office, what do you think he should have done from the very beginning that he did not do to make the 2010 campaign issue go away? And what would you have done?
I don't think you can make it go away. I think you have to own up to it and deal with the consequences. If you accepted in your campaign, solicited, and knew what was going on, underground operation to the tune of $600,000, there's really no going away from it. I do think what residents expect is a leader that's going to be straightforward with them. People make mistakes. Now, some mistakes are breaking the rules, some mistakes are breaking the law. In either case, you have to be able to step up and say what you did and accept responsibility for it. I think what drives people really crazy, every time I turn this way, I lose my mic, so let me see if I can adjust it so I'm not giving you my bad side. But I think what people expect, certainly, is a mayor that's going to level with them and have the moral authority to lead. And so when a mayor or a leader always says that it's somebody else's fault, it's a problem. It's a problem. So
when, obviously Jeffrey Thompson has been a major player in the city in many ways for a long time, what has been the impact of this scandal, this shadow campaign, on Mayor Gray's ability to get things done? The mayor argues that whatever happened in 2010, the city's doing well, there are lots of successes and lots of good metrics to look at. What can you point to that shows the impact of this scandal beyond just the fact that it has people abuzz and upset with him personally?
Well, I don't know that people are upset with him personally. I mean, I don't know how many people are here are personal friends with the mayor, but they are as people that may have elected him, and even if they didn't go out and vote for him, he's the mayor. So I don't know that it's the personal impacts that any of us should concern ourselves with. What we should be concerned about is when people go to New York or Houston and Atlanta and call us and ask us what's going on with DC and your mayor. It affects our national reputation. When I go out to the region and Metro, or I was out in Prince George's County meeting with some folks yesterday, what's going on with your mayor? It affects our ability to take leadership in the region. When you have council members that have been in trouble themselves, 3 of which had to resign, and one's in jail, one's on the way to jail, and you have a mayor that can say nothing about it, can exercise zero leadership in the city because he doesn't have the moral authority to lead in that respect. So I think there's a lot of things beyond the trains moving on time that residents have to be concerned about. But let us also not think that everything is hunky-dory in the city. We need a focused mayor to pay attention to why we have a homeless crisis, to look and make sure that we're not going back to a time in our city like when I grew up where there were homicides on the street with no outrage and no action. And that's what the first 2 months of this year have been like in our city. We have to have a mayor that's focused on our unemployment situation. Well, we're sitting in Ward 3, most people are working. Ward 4, most people are working. You go in Ward 7 and 8, and the unemployment numbers are through the roof, yet we're told one city, one hire is the cat's meow. Well, really, it's not. Because people aren't getting sustaining jobs and they're not keeping them. So if we're going to be a city that's focused on the big issues that are facing our future, and we've come a long way since Ms. Rivlin, was in charge of us, and we want to we don't want to bring her back. So we're going to make sure that we continue to grow our city. But with that growth comes pressure, right? We don't want to be New York City or San Francisco, so I think the challenge for the next mayor is how we focus on intentional policies that are going to grow our middle class, and that takes focus.
So Jeffrey Thompson and his associates gave you more than $24,000 between 2007 and 2012. Why do you think he supported you, and did he ever contact you about doing anything on his behalf?
Sure. Mr. Thompson contributed to our campaigns in 2007. In my first election, I was in a special election, and again in 2008, and no campaign since. And so I think there are a lot of businesses who are eager to support us when we came on the council in 2007. It was an open seat, very hotly watched race, and we raised a lot of money in that race, including for that one. So you asked me, what was the second part of the question?
Why do you think he supported you? Well, you said you answered that. And did he ever continue to try to get anything on his behalf?
We've never given Mr. Thompson any favors, that's for sure. And part of what...
Did he ever ask you for any?
No, he never asked us for any favors. In fact, I can recall very few conversations even that I had with him since then. But the question that really came to the table around Mr. Thompson's giving in this 2010 campaign involved a sweeping contract. And we paid very close attention to that contract when it came over, mostly because it had been discussed in just the months prior to Mr. Gray coming into office. And I knew that it had been denied by the Fenty administration. So I paid close attention to it when it came over. There was many aspects of the discussion that didn't seem right, didn't smell right, so I didn't vote for it. So more than not being asked to do things, I didn't provide any favors in that regard. And let me also make a clear distinction. Any contributions that have been given to our campaigns, including from Mr. Thompson, are above board and reported. The reason why you can report numbers like that is because they're on all of our campaign finance reports. So let me make a distinction between the allegations against Mr. Gray, which says that in fact they didn't show up on any campaign reports, that they were provided under the table. That's why they call it a shadow campaign.
So when did you first get to know Jeffrey Thompson?
I first met him probably in 2007 when I ran.
So you didn't know earlier in life, because I know your mother had worked with him at some point, right?
No.
Is that right? Not right?
No, where did you get that from?
From people who work at the Department of Mental Health.
My mother worked with Jeffrey Thompson.
That's what I was told. All right, but did he have the mayor?
Let me roll back.
Okay.
My mother is a nurse.
Right.
She has spent an entire career helping people who are ill. She worked for more than 20 years at the Veterans Administration Hospital. She worked later at the National Rehabilitation Hospital, and she retired as a nurse manager from St. Elizabeth's. Very distinguished career in nursing.
Okay.
So I don't know where her paths would have crossed with Jeffrey Thompson.
And the mayor said the other day that you also, like him, had known Mr. Thompson as Uncle Earl.
Well, that's a lie.
And he never asked you to call him by any other name?
No.
Okay.
And neither do I think, and let me tell you how ridiculous I think it is for us to be having that conversation. And I thought it was, imagine this, sitting there, a 71-year-old man, in a televised debate, having a conversation about calling a man 15 years his junior Uncle Earl. Is that what you want for your city? I don't. I want to get beyond that. And that is particularly why we need a fresh start in the mayor's office.
So the other mayor you were closely associated with, Adrian Fenty, who
Yes.
was something of a mentor and someone you worked closely with before you were on the council and then once you were on the council.
Absolutely.
What is his role? Is he playing any role in your campaign? I know a number of the people helping to run your campaign are veterans of his earlier campaign.
Who's that?
Ben Soto, like.
Yes, Ben Soto has been the chairman of all of my campaigns, so this is his fourth time. And Bill Lightfoot has not, and I asked him when we got serious about thinking about running this for some advice and to get involved in our campaign. We also went out, and I got some criticism for this. I said, you know, we want the best of the best in this campaign. I'm looking all over to make sure we got it. I actually hired somebody from Virginia, sitting over there, to be the campaign manager. So that, in many ways, represents a clean break from other campaigns. But we do have a lot of people who I know well, who I've worked with on my Ward 4 races, Adrian's Ward 4 race, who are with us. So Adrian is a friend. He always has been a friend and supporter, and I expect him to continue to be a friend and supporter.
And as you look at his mayoralty and analyze what went wrong politically for him, obviously he came in with enormous hopes and won every precinct in the city. No one's ever come close to doing that. And 4 years later, he lost fairly easily. What went wrong? What did he do that brought about that change in the way a lot of people in the city thought about it?
I think that, and you won't be surprised that I spent a lot of time thinking about it. I watched it from the council, so I could, in many ways, I have a different perspective than everybody sitting here. But I think that what I would do differently moving forward is we're going to go in, and I'm going to make sure I have people around me who are going to tell me, you know, Muriel, stop. Muriel, listen. Muriel, go there. When you do these jobs, sometimes you charge hard, and you need people around you who will speak truth to power. And so we're going to make sure we have a strong team like that, starting with a great chief of staff, city administrator, very important, budget director, very important to us. Make sure we have a great chief of police, fire chief, school's chancellor, and have people who are prepared to really help implement my vision. The other thing that we saw was early on in his tenure was a battle with the council that went south fast. And then you saw an organized effort on the legislative side to derail him. And I think there are a lot of people who have some blame in that situation, and certainly Adrian was one of them. So we are, I approach, and I want to approach my relationship with the council very differently, from a respectful way. I want to get rid of petty stuff. You won't hear me talking about baseball tickets, I promise. And so just put the pettiness to the side. And so I think that I go into this with a lot less ego and willingness to work.
One of the big issues that led to his political downfall was obviously gentrification and the way that was perceived in some parts of the city. And you generally embraced the ideas that Tony Williams and Adrian Fenty advocated, that development of large projects will expand the tax base, that will in turn provide the money to boost low-income communities. But some of the city's attempts to jumpstart retail development in, for example, Anacostia, have mostly failed. If you look at some of the retail that's been attempted over there. Do you think the kind of retail success and residential development that we've seen, say, 14th Street, 8th Street Northeast, can be transferred to places like Anacostia, Minnesota Avenue, Upper Georgia Avenue, or are such businesses mainly attracted just to high-income areas?
Well, there are some businesses that are mainly attracted to high-income areas, and one thing that the mayor has to do is tell people the truth. I heard somebody say, we're going to bring Whole Foods to Skyland or Anacostia. And, you know, Whole Foods has a very simple equation. Do I draw a circle around the proposed location, and is the average income $90,000? And that's where they go. It really doesn't have anything with the mayor's will or promises. They want to know how many. Now, the other one, Harris Teeter, they want to know how many master's degrees are. That's what they want to know. And so what we have to do, if I want Whole Foods in Anacostia, what do I have to get the incomes up, right? And so those are the types of things, or else we just put out a plan and tell people the truth. So do we want to transfer 14th Street to Anacostia? No. Do we want to transfer 8th Street to Upper Georgia Avenue? If you've been to Shepherd Park, I'm pretty sure you know they don't want 12 bars. Okay, that's not what people want. But people do want quality amenities. I was really disturbed recently. We were walking in historic Anacostia. And there was a kind of a local market that's being shut down for renovation. And since that place has been closed down for renovation, you can really see that people don't have any place to go. So they're going literally a couple of miles away to the Safeway, which is also not serving them well. So yes, we can get more development east of the Anacostia River. And I've been so concerned about where I see the drop-off in progress in those neighborhoods that I ask myself every time we walked, how are you not going to be the mayor that people say this about? Because this is what I hear every time I'm in Anacostia or in other Ward 8 neighborhoods, and Ward 7 neighborhoods too. Politicians only come around during election time. They never do what they say they're going to do, and nothing's going to change, so why should I vote? So I want to win this race, but I also don't want to be the mayor that people say that about in 4 years. So one thing that I'm committed to doing is appointing a deputy mayor for the East River. And that's not a constituent services function. It's really a function, a job, a person, an office that will report directly to the mayor, who's supposed to leverage the resources, our education resources, economic development resources, and workforce training resources in Ward 7 and 8, so that we can really change the trajectory of opportunity for people who live there. The unemployment problem is real. The problem of people not having the ability to afford more housing is very real.
So what do you do about that? I mean, this is chronic unemployment. We've had administration after administration say the answer is job training, programs get started.
You never heard me say that.
Changes.
You never heard me say the answer is
What's
job
your
training.
answer?
Actually, I think we have to unwind the job training apparatus in the District of Columbia. There was one, I see the DC Fiscal Policy Institute is here and prepared, and I looked at this flyer, and I hadn't quite looked at it this way, and I'm grateful for you putting that together. $100 million in 1 year, fiscal 2010, I believe. $100 million across all these different agencies, mental health, UDC, you name it, DYRS, all having a little piece. And there are virtually no outcomes tied to that money, no jobs. So I think that we have to re-engineer how we spend that money. And you have to ask, is this DOES working? Do we need to change that? But I also think that we need to focus on our procurement power. I'd much rather pay one of my contractors to train and employ somebody than send this employee to a job training program. They get some kind of certificate and no job at the end. And so that's what I like to do. The fact of the matter is we have a lot of people in this city that have challenges to employment. And so we want to work with our private sector. They're not in the job training business. They're in the business of building buildings or building IT systems or providing healthcare services, no matter what it is that they do. But they have jobs. They're the ones that have the jobs, and they're using our money to create the jobs. So let's partner with them. Let's subsidize them to train our employees while they're getting a paycheck. This is one thing I've learned about the long-term unemployed. They have what I call a short hope horizon. You know what that means? That means it's hard to say to somebody who's not making any money, you stay in this program for 12 months, or you be an apprentice for 3 years, and then you're going to earn a good job. So let's get them working while they're being trained.
So can you point to any specific job programs in the city that you think have not worked of the kind that you just described? And if you could name them, what has the council been able to do to either wind them down or change them or scrap them entirely?
We have a lot of jobs. We have jobs and housing programs where, we were putting them out of the health department that weren't working. Look at our summer youth program that's not working. Your year-round program, I would say that's not working because there are not enough people in it. And this is what I would do differently about the summer youth. This current administration made a huge deal about, and there were a lot of problems when Fenty did it. I mean, huge problems. got too big, unwieldy, kids weren't in productive situations. But this was right about what he did. Everybody could be in it, everybody could get a job who wanted to work. That was Marion Barry's commitment also. And it was longer. So Vince Gray's answer was to shorten it. So you have 6 weeks out of the summer where kids could work. So I would make that program longer and try to get more kids covered in it, but also expand our current year-round program so that more kids could be involved. I would also increase the upper age limit to 24. I think the big critical age group in our city that needs help is that 18 to 24-year-old.
So let's turn to housing, and particularly affordable housing. In every mayoral race, this is an issue. It's been an issue for decades. There was seemed some progress under the Williams and Fenty administrations with this notion of mixed income communities, new communities, Hope 6, and all of that. That's all basically ground to a halt under Mayor Gray. Why do you think he stopped putting effort into those programs, and what should they be revived, or is there another solution?
I think they should be revived. So the New Communities Initiative, and it did, you're right, Mark, start under Mayor Williams. And the whole point of it, and you'll hear some people call them Hope 6 projects as well. They're basically public housing projects that are being transformed. And the idea is that 100% public housing doesn't work. It concentrates poverty and problems associated with poverty in one place. So the Hope 6 and the New Communities Initiative, right, was what we call the New Communities, is meant to mix income. So replace all public housing with a portion public housing, a portion above it as affordable housing, and some market rate housing. Projects are hard. They're not easy. And it takes a lot of commitment and thoughtfulness about how you move forward to it. I just think that the Gray administration is not a priority for them. There was probably more than 2 years since they were in office where there was just no New Communities director. When I became the chairman of the Committee on Economic Development, the Affordable Housing Portfolio is on our committee. The very first hearing that I had was about New Communities. And I didn't know a lot about the new communities in other parts of the city, but I knew about Park Morton, because Park Morton is just to the south of my ward, and Park Morton affects the people that I represent a lot. And so I really wanted to figure out why these projects at Park Morton, at Berry Farm, at Lincoln Heights, and at the former Temple Courts were not moving. And what it became very clear to me was that the deputy mayor for Vince Gray is not a priority for him. He didn't hire a New Communities director, and he didn't push the housing authority to get things done. I think, frankly, it wasn't their program, and he doesn't think that it works.
But you do, and you would restore it?
Absolutely, I do. This is what I'm sure of, Mark. We talk about being a city where we want diversity, we want a growing middle class, we want affordable housing. It makes no sense to watch 8,000 units of public housing deteriorate to the point where they would have to be demolished. And that is what we're on the verge of. We have to have solutions for those 8,000 units of public housing.
So one of the criticisms that your opponents in this race make about you is that although you've been on the council for 7 years, that Jack Evans will say that you haven't had much in the way of legislative achievements. The mayor says you've not had management experience. Aside from the ethics bill that you championed in recent months, what would you say were your major legislative achievements?
Well, I don't know why you would poo-poo the ethics bill.
I'm just saying.
Okay, well, let's talk, and more than that, I don't know why you would seek Jack Evans or Vince Gray for their recommendations. This is what we know. You know this. This comes from your newspaper. People in the District of Columbia aren't looking to Vince Gray for a recommendation on the next mayor. Okay, and Jack Evans would seem to be running to be his vice mayor. So I don't think that they're looking for a recommendation for him either. And I have to tell you, I'm very proud of my legislative record. You know, I heard the other day, the debate we were in, that one of my opponents said he brought the city back. He did.
That would be Jack Evans.
That would be Jack Evans. And I said, how is it possible that, you know, Cape Crusader, you brought the city back? Because as I recall, Tony Williams and Adrian Finty and Linda Kropp and Sharon Ambrose and, you know, various team members of our, sometimes we forget our control board, but they helped us when we were in a desperate time. All these people helped bring the city back. There was a question about management experience, and I didn't hear one question about Jack Evans' management experience. You know what it is? I don't know what it is. Doesn't even answer the question. So I get that question a lot because, and this is why I think, because I'm 41. Okay, so people say she's young, she's a woman, how's she going to run this big city? And so the fact of the matter is, I didn't hatch from my egg before I came to that council. I had a whole long career. I worked in a government that was very progressive, that focused on the redevelopment of downtown Silver Spring. I worked around this region on transportation management issues. I successfully run a $1 million campaign now, 3 other campaigns in an office for Ward 4. I am singularly responsible for leadership in that ward of 75,000 people and then moving an agenda, which is exactly what we've done. So down on the council, I've also had tremendous responsibility in chairing the Government Operations Committee, where we did move an ethics bill. So I know you don't want to talk about it, and I know they don't like to talk about it because it wasn't their responsibility to do it. But what we were able to accomplish is actually bringing 13 council members together to take away some of their privileges. You know how hard that is? It's pretty hard, but we were able to do it and get in place an independent board of ethics. We also focused on an issue that was very critical at the time, was making sure that DC residents were being protected from big banks during the foreclosure crisis. We also focused on a very important issue when health care rates were skyrocketing. This is pre-Affordable Care Act. And the insurance companies were just taking advantage of our residents and making sure that we had appropriate rate making down at the council. I'm also very proud, and that was a very practical measure. I wish I had thought about it 7 years ago, but we got it in place in very short order, allowing children to get to school without paying. How about that? We know out in the suburbs, they walk out to the corner and they get on a school bus. What we had in our city for many years is that you had to go and pay on the Metro bus. So now, because of a bill I authored, we have kids ride free on the Metro bus, and we're very proud of it. So there are many other issues related to development in our ward, development in other wards, related to senior property taxes, which is going to be an increasingly important issue for our city, that we were able to expand the eligibility for the senior property tax. And I am going to be very supportive of Anita Bonds' bill that will actually eliminate the property tax for seniors who are at least 70 years old and earn less than $60,000 per year. So those are the things that we've been focused on.
So in your home ward, Ward 4, with each succeeding election, you've had a higher percentage of the vote. And last time you were basically unopposed. But
actually, I was not unopposed.
Well, all unopposed, let's say. You won 95% of the vote.
I'm pretty sure that Max Skolnick wouldn't appreciate that statement.
Well, but the one criticism that we do hear from some people in Ward 4 has to do with the schools and the fact that the 2 high schools in your ward, Roosevelt and Coolidge, we're basically at the bottom of the list as far as renovations, when they would be renovated. What is your sense of how you can, in a ward that has an increasing population, that has a lot of young families moving in, and yet in which a number of the middle and high schools have very low enrollments, and you have a lot of folks who live in Ward 4 and send their kids elsewhere to go to school. Is that a problem that you think should be addressed, or should people just be allowed to send their kids across town? And what should be done about the high schools in your ward?
Okay, so you asked a number of questions. So people in Ward 4 have always sent their kids all over the city, so that's not a new phenomenon. It didn't start 7 years ago. So yes, a lot of Ward 4 kids have populated the Ward 3 schools, when Ward 3 families wouldn't go to the Ward 3 schools. So it has been a long tradition of people finding the best opportunities wherever they go. And a lot of Ward 4 families also go to private schools. So our job as a government is to make sure they have good choices, not dictate where they go, because families are going to make the best decisions for them. So we want to make sure that they have a quality elementary school, quality middle school, and quality high school options near their home, and so that's important. I am extremely disappointed with the middle school situation in our ward. So there were some decisions made, Michelle Reed made at the time, that many of our schools should go up to the 8th grade. And what that allowed, frankly, is for those schools to stay open, because there would be more kids to support a budget to find, so that they could stay in their neighborhoods. But what it also meant is that it drained on the population for the middle school. Well, you may say that that's a huge problem. And for the middle school, it had been a problem for a long time. What I thought should happen to the middle school is that it could be combined into the new Roosevelt, which the school system also did for Cardozo. So instead of being 9 to 12, it would be 6 to 12. And that's what I still think is the best interim solution. I think at the end of the day, however, Ward 4, just like all of the wards need, is a refocused attention and program for middle schools. And so my commitment is to make sure that there's a standalone middle school in the ward, but also that we are addressing the middle school needs across the city.
And what is your view now that we've had a number of years with an extensive charter school program in the city, and more than a third of the kids in the city now going to charter schools? Do you think school choice helps or hinders low-income students? Obviously, there's some excellent charters. There are also some that haven't worked out terribly well. But you have parents who have some savvy who are picking up and choosing to send their kids to charter schools, and what folks in the regular public schools often say is we're left with people where there are likely to be less parent involvement and kids with some more difficulties. So what is the ultimate impact of school choice on low-income families?
Well, I think ultimately it will be good. I do think that there's some things that need to be tweaked about it. For example, I think that the excellent charter schools should open to where the kids need it the most. And right now, we don't really have any control. The public charter school board, from what I see, they don't really even know when they approve a charter where the school is going to locate. So I think that we need to figure out where the most need is, and before they allow a charter to be approved, so that the school is actually being located where the kids need to be. The other thing is, I think where the charter schools have an increasing market share in a neighborhood, in an area, that they have to provide a neighborhood preference. So that issue with creaming with the kids or the families that are a little bit more able to kind of find what's best goes away, and those charter schools would have to serve the entire neighborhood. But I think you're right to wonder, are we kind of on a collision course at some point? The more the charters grow, what does that mean for DCPS? And I think that presents a particular challenge for the school's chancellor to really find what the niche is for DC public schools. I think that our systems can be more complementary than they are right now. And I think that it's going to be incumbent upon the DC public schools to figure out how to better work in that environment. This is what I know about DC residents. They're not prepared to see the demise of DC public schools and a by right education for their kids. And I'm encouraged, actually, by what I see in the elementary schools now. We are attracting young families from all of the neighborhoods. We are attracting in some schools. Now, you're talking about a neighborhood school, for example, in my ward, in Shepherd Park, where, probably in the last 20 years, the neighborhood hasn't gone to that school. Now we see those trends changing and the neighborhoods going to that school.
When you were going to high school, your parents made the choice to send you to a Catholic school in Prince George's County.
Mm-hmm.
If you had kids now in the neighborhood where you live, do you think you would send them to your neighborhood schools, public schools?
I probably would.
Because they've improved, or?
Because I would sit on the schools. Now, I wouldn't make the choice, and Harris didn't decide with me. I'm the last of 5. they decided with my sister, who's 16 years older than me, that we would have a Catholic education, and we did. But I think that there are a number of great school choices in DC, and I would be more than happy with them.
There's been a lot of talk in this campaign about homelessness and the way Mayor Gray has handled the surge in homeless families in particular. Have you been over to DC General lately? What have you seen there? And what is the city's responsibility to people who are homeless? Is the city's current law too broadly written, is there too great a right to shelter in the city compared to surrounding jurisdictions?
Well, I think Washingtonians, especially now in this kind of era of prosperity, they don't want to see women and children live on the street or in recreation centers. They want to be a city that's generous to its veterans and people that have mental illness or addiction. So my experience is that people want us to serve our neediest residents and give them a pathway. They don't want to, the judge agrees that, the courts say you can't just pack people in recreation centers with flimsy walls. That doesn't meet our law. And so is our law too expansive? I don't think so. And actually, I think what we have to figure out now is what it means for children, young people, teenagers who are in dangerous situations and find themselves homeless. And we're treating them, we don't treat them like we treat adults, and actually are directing them back into situations that may be harmful for them. So I think that there are a lot of things that we need to do around homelessness. This is where I think that this administration kind of got itself in trouble, is that they think it's okay for families to double up. And maybe it is in some cases, but as the government, I think that it makes me uncomfortable to kind of make it so hard to get shelter when you really might need it, that I have some questions about it. I think they also rolled back from a housing first position. Now certainly during when we had stimulus dollars come in, there was a commitment from the previous administration to make sure that we're building housing, putting people in permanent supportive units with wraparound services, which is, I think, a model we have to go back to. Now, we're going to have to replace the money with local dollars, but I think that's something that the taxpayers of the District of Columbia are willing to step up to the plate to do.
So 4 years ago, Mayor Gray was elected almost entirely by Black Washington. He won more than 80% of the black vote, while then Mayor Fenty won more than 80% of the white vote. Have you seen any improvement in the division of the city in the last 4 years? And is there any reason to believe that the gulf dividing the races will get any narrower as young, mostly affluent people continue to move into the city at a rapid pace?
Well, I think I'm your best chance. I don't think there's any other candidate who has the energy that our campaign has in each of the 8 wards. In other words, Mayor Gray still won't get, I don't think, any votes in white Washington. I don't think that the other candidates will get many votes in black Washington. What I've been proud of, and I've had the great opportunity to represent a ward that crosses those racial divides. And sometimes people ask me, Muriel, what are you most proud of? And I'm gonna warn you, it sounds a little Pollyannish. But I am most proud of being able to go on each side of Ward 4 and people know about the other side. I was first elected, I'll tell you, I made a commitment that we're gonna tackle this. But you can't say, you know what, Ward 4, we're gonna erase this racial line. That's not the way you do it. What you do is you invite people to know about each other. And so I do an annual, I call it a family fun day, and I hosted it for the first 6 years, I think, at Lafayette School, which is in Chevy Chase in Ward 4. And there were literally people that I invited from my neighborhood, Riggs, and other places east that couldn't find it. They didn't know where it was. And they wanted to come, and they said, next time you'll make sure you put the directions on it. Okay, so I said, okay, we'll do that. And then when I would come to Chevy Chase and talk about something happening on Georgia Avenue or something happening at Walter Reed, people kind of knew, because they didn't really get that park is a real separation. Didn't know about it. Now when I go to Chevy Chase, I get just as many questions about Walter Reed as I do about something happening in Chevy Chase. So we have literally kind of crossed that park. And that is the same, that's why I get a lot of support all across my ward, and we're seeing equal energy in what you call the white Washington parts of the city. There really is no white way to run the government and no black way to run the government. People really want the same things, believe it or not. They want a great school, a safe neighborhood. They want the government to deliver on its promises, and they want their kids to be able to have a better shot than they did. That's what they want. I don't care where you go. That's what they want. They may articulate it in different ways. They may have different needs on the streets, but that is what they want.
So I know you have to leave and go to another forum that the city paper is holding. That will be yet another forum that the mayor does not attend. There's 2 weeks left in this campaign.
He's not attending the city paper forum?
As far as we know, he's not. So there are 2 weeks left in this campaign.
I heard he's not attending anything in Ward 3. Is that true?
Well, he's not attending anything almost anywhere. But
No, he goes to some forums. What I understood, though, is that they made the decision not to campaign in Ward 3, which I think is a mistake. And let me just say this, because when I started this race, they said I would not get any votes east of the river. You were not, they don't know you, Muriel, you're from uptown, you don't relate, you're not going to get any votes. And we made the decision, and he got 82% of the vote there. It was juiced, but he got 82%. And so we made the decision early on to double down in Ward 8. We're not going to walk away from Ward 8. And it's a resource commitment, but we will not walk away. And the first test of our organization was the straw poll. We put a lot into it, we got a lot, and we won. And we won. And so that's what when I launched my campaign, it's coming up on a year now, last March 23rd, and I told all my staff, whoever's going to work with me, I said, we will not cut this city in half. We will not slice off one ward. We will not do it. This will be a campaign for every neighborhood and every vote, and we have kept that commitment.
you have 2 weeks left. Obviously, there are a lot of former supporters.
No, we have about 12 hours left because some people are going to be voting tomorrow.
That's true. Early voting starts tomorrow, exactly. And there are some former supporters of the mayor who are looking where to go at this point, who to turn to. How do you, in 2 weeks, persuade people like you rather than the other two challengers who have significant support are going to be the one to make this last-minute surge?
Well, I believe, and have for some time, even before these polls came out, I think the last poll showed that 2/3 of primary voters want a new mayor. And we've asked them all of this time to look very long and hard at our campaign. We appreciated the Washington Post endorsement and really focusing on what I think is important as well. What's our vision? What's the vision for the future of this city? And what really motivated me to get into this race was kind of looking at the pipeline that was created by Fenty and Williams and all of the previous council members who worked long and hard, and knowing that if we're not careful, that pipeline will dry up with no new activity. What motivated me was looking at our challenges moving ahead. So 200,000 new people. Some people probably thought, and actually I thought a lot of people were wacky when they said we could attract 100,000 new people to the city. But guess what? We're going to do it. And they're coming with cars and children and iPods and iPads, and they want to be able to have emergency services and breathe clean air and a great quality of life, just like all 630,000 of us who already live here. So if we're going to get ready for that future, we have to really break new ground in a lot of ways that I don't see this administration doing, or really having the ability to attract the type of talent across all of the agencies to do. So how are we going to build that new housing, or invest the $26 billion in Metro, or replace that public housing that we've had no movement on for the last 3 years? How are we going to transfer our emergency medical services from a fire department to one that's more focused on the medical needs that are facing our agencies? How are we going to get those 18 to 24-year-old males back to work so that we don't have the enormous human resource strain that we have? I have watched this kind of a coasting. I've just watched it. I've seen the difference. And I know that we can't afford another 4 years of coasting, or we lose that much more time getting ready for the future. So that's my vision, is getting ready for the challenges and opportunities that are ahead, but also making progress in a way that more people in the city can enjoy the progress that we're making, and focusing on growing the middle class in Washington. That's what our campaign is about. And so I have to ask you, if you agree with me and a lot of your neighbors and friends, you want that fresh start in the mayor's office, to please take a long, hard look at our campaign. And know this, that we'll make the city proud, we'll attract great people to work for us, we'll listen to your aspirations for the city as well, and we'll work long and hard every day to get the job done.
Okay. Your Ambassador, thanks very much for being here.
Thank you.
You want to take any questions?
No.
No questions?
I would be happy to, except I have a commitment at this forum at 8 p.m. But I don't know why you would wave at me. That was my commitment. But I'm happy to stay behind and answer your question.
Thank you.
Okay.
There's some refreshments in the lobby. So feel free.
Whatever you want, if you want. Oh, I can say my students. Let me say hello to my students. Wait tomorrow, or if you want to have some.
I may vote for him.
Then you're voting for Vince, right?
No.
People were for, my opinion,
Why shouldn't it be a vote for Jacka?
but I think so then you're voting for Vince, right?
Winter, I got all ready, and then I'm gonna put this in the car, this is so it's coming up at 8. I promise. She's great. She's she's transferred to the University of Colorado, and she's coming on this week. She'll be home Friday night.
That's not the end of the outreach.
She's taking 5
I know, that's
What's he gonna do? Great lawyer. Isabel used to tell me, you two should be. You know, because I knew, you know, my mother and I both like politics.
All right, thank you.
Well, Brad, you know, how do you like that new pretty nice, huh?
And it's a national election. And it's, you know, it's like last year's kind of just stay on it. I know it's like after the files, got told that.
Just got ranked 7th, man. I'm pretty happy about that. They're kind of, oh my God, you know, it should be higher, but I'll tell you, I'll take it. Hey, Ed, Lazier. What you gotta tell him? He's the fiscal policy. I haven't seen him. He doesn't even know if I had all this. So, thank you so much for saying hi. Really great to see you. Really great to see you. Listen, you're called Black Men. Not you, but and they gave them all the time. They taught them all how to time. They were lots of cooking most of them went to more hospitals.
See, that's even better. Well, let me be on my way then. How did you get up here? Come around. No.
I'm not old.
That's hard, that happens a lot.
Yeah. Well, you know, what are you gonna do? And believe me, I don't like the new guy at all.